I'm very, very happy now to introduce our next speaker, Don Paterson. Don Paterson was born in Dundee, Scotland in 1963. He works as an editor, as a musician, and he also lectures at the University of St. Andrews. His most recent poetry collection is Rain, and is published in 2009. A very, very warm welcome to Don Paterson.
Good evening. I'll read for same length as everyone else. I'll just stick to some stuff from this last book, a book called Rain. Forgive me. A poem called Two Trees. One morning, Don Miguel got out of bed with one idea rooted in his head: to graft his orange to his lemon tree. It took him the whole day to work them free, lay open their sides, and lash them tight. For 12 months, from the shame or from the fright, they put forth nothing. But one day there appeared two lights in the dark leaves. Over the years, the limbs would get themselves so tangled up. Each bough looked like it gave a double crop, and not one kid in the village didn't know the magic tree in Miguel's patio. The man who bought the house had had no dream, so who can say what dark, malicious whim led him to take his axe and split the bowl along its fused seam and then dig two holes? And no, they did not die of solitude, nor did their branches bear a sterile fruit. Nor did their unhealed flanks weep every spring for those 4 yards that lost them everything, as each strained on its shackled route to face the other's empty, intricate embrace. They were trees, and trees don't weep or ache or shout, and trees are all this poem is about. I'll go on with I'll read a few bits from a sequence that was written really in collaboration with the Scottish artist Alison Watt. Go on yourself. And that was for a recent exhibition of hers. And it was written as an elegy for a friend of mine, an American poet called Michael Donaghy. So I'll read a few bits of that. I'm sure you know, there's a wonderful painting of called St. Francis in Meditation by Zurbaran in the National that we became obsessed with. Zurbaran, St. Francis in Meditation is westlit, hooded, kneeling tight in his frame. His hands are joined both in supplication and to clasp the old skull to his breast. This he is at pains to hold along the knit line of the parietal bone, the better, I would say, to feel the teeth of the upper jaw gnaw into his sternum. His face is tilted upwards, heavenwards, while the skull in turn beholds his upturned face. I would say that Francis' eyes are closed, but this is guesswork, since they are occluded wholly by the shadow of his cowl, for which we read the larger dark he claims beyond the local evening of his cell. But I would say the fetish point, the punctum, is not the skull, the white cup of his hands, or the frayed hole in the elbow of his robe, but the tiny batwing of his open mouth, and its vowel, the ah of revelation, grief, or agony. But in this case, I would say there is something in the care of its depiction to prove that we arrest the saint mid-speech. I would say something had passed between the man and his interrogated night. I would say his words are not his words. I would say the skull is working him. And this is a wee poem. It's after a painting of Alison's called Breath. Or to put it otherwise, consider this pinwheel of white linen, at its heart a hollow, and in the hollow a small hole. We cannot say or see whether the hole passes through the cloth or if the cloth darkens itself, by which I mean gives rise to it, the black star at its heart, and hosts it as a mere emergent trait of its own intricate, enfolded structure. Either way, towards the framing edge, something else is calling into question the linen's own materiality, and the folds depicted are impossible. Zurbaran knew he could guarantee at least one fainting fit at the unveiling if he arranged the torch or window light to echo what he'd painted in the frame. This way, to those who first beheld the saint, the light that fell on him seemed literal. In the same way, I might have you read these words on a black moon in a forest after midnight, 1,000 miles from anywhere your plea for hearth or water might be understood, and have you strike one match and then another, not to light these rooms or to augment what little light they shed upon themselves, but to see the kind of dark I laid between them. We come from nothing and return to it. It lends us out to time, and when we lie in silent contemplation of the void, they say we feel it contemplating us. This is wrong, but who could bear the truth? We are ourselves the void in contemplation. We are its only nerve and hand and eye. I know. There is something vast and distant and enthroned with which you are one and continuous, staring through your mind, staring and staring like a black sun, constant, silent, radiant, with neither love nor hate nor apathy, as we have no human name for its regard. Your thought is the bright shadows that it makes as it plays across the objects of the earth, or such icons of them as your mind has forged. The book in sunlight, or the tree in rain, bursts at its touch into a blaze of signs. But when the mind rests and the dark light stills, the tree will rise untethered to its station between heaven and earth. The open book turn runic and unreadable again. And if a word then rises to our lips, we speak it on behalf of everything. A poem called The Swing. The swing was picked up for the boys, for the here and here to stay, and only she knew why it was I dug so solemnly. I spread the feet 2 yards apart and hammered down the pegs, filled up the holes and stamped the dirt around its skinny legs. I hung the rope up in the air and fixed the yellow seat, and stood back that I might admire my handiwork complete, and saw within its frail trapeze the child that would not come, of what we knew had 2 more days before we sent it home. I know that there is nothing here, no venue and no host, but the honest fulcrum of the hour that engineers our ghost. The bright sweep of its radar arc as all the human dream, handing us from dark to dark like a rope over a stream. But for all the coldness of my creed, and for all those I denied, and for all the others she had freed like arrows from her side, and for all the child was barely here, and for all that we were over, I could not weigh the ghosts we are against those we deliver. I gave the empty seat a push, and nothing made a sound, and swung between 2 skies to brush her feet upon the ground. And I'm going to finish with 2 very short poems. And this one's called The Error. As the bird is to the air, and the whale is to the sea, so man is to his dream. His world is just the glare of the world's utility, returned by his eye beam. Each self-reflecting mind is in this manner destined to forget its element, and this is why we find, however deep we listen, that the skies are silent. And finally, there's a wee poem called Rain, about movies. I love all films that start with rain. Rain braiding a window pane, or darkening a hung-out dress, or streaming down her upturned face. One big thundering downpour, right through the empty script and score, before the act, before the blame, before the lens pulls through the frame to where a woman sits alone beside a silent telephone, or the dress lies ruined on the grass, or the girl walks off the overpass. And all things flow out from that source along their fatal watercourse. However bad or overlong, such a film can do no wrong. So when his native twang shows through, or when the boom dips into view, or when her speech starts to betray its adaptation from the play, I think to when we open cold on a starlit gutter, running gold with the neon of a drugstore sign, and I'd read into its blazing line, forget the ink, the milk, the blood, all was washed clean with the flood. We rose up from the falling waters, the fallen rain's own sons and daughters, and none of this matters. Thank you. Cheers.